If true, this is absolutely sickening, as a new report has dropped as to one of the reasons why the Toronto Raptors parted ways with Masai Ujiri today. Of course, we've seen a ton of analysis, a ton of reports leak regarding this whole situation. We saw the CEO of MLSE come out and do damage control in a press conference today, trying to take some of the heat off of Edward Rogers after everything that's been coming out. We've covered it all in the videos that have led up to this one here today. But this newest report is one of the dumbest bits of reasoning. Honestly, it's a bit disgusting coming from the Toronto Raptors organization as to why they are trying to paint Masai Ujiri with this leaks of information. Of course, you're publicly saying everything right, and then the leaks that come out and stuff. It is just not right. All this stuff that's getting put out here now at this point. We're going to break down all of these reports. So much stuff to break down. But before we dive into that, folks, I want to say thanks to each and every single one of you that have been hitting that subscribe button, building up this Raptors Digest community as we march forward towards 40,000 subscribers. And, if you're part of the 38,234 we got here right now, appreciate every single one of you. Appreciate everyone that's tuned in the vids. But if you want to stay up to date with everything going on with the Toronto Raptors, every little report, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button because we're delivering it all here on Raptors Digest. But we have so much stuff to get into, as there's been a lot of analysis, a lot of things broken down in terms of why Masai Ujiri was let go. Now, Keith Pelley of MLSE, the CEO of the ownership group for this team that represents the board of governors and the people that own the Toronto Raptors, as in Edward Rogers, these execs at Rogers Communications, all these types of things, he came out and did a press conference and did damage control for Edward Rogers because there's a few reasons that everyone knows why Masai Ujiri was let go. Firstly, is money. This isn't the one I'm diving into as the main reason in this video, but it's been reported by Ryan Woolstat and different outlets that the Toronto Raptors did not want to pay the high price tag it costs to keep a guy like Masai Ujiri in your organization. He's expensive. It makes sense. He's a guy that has all of the connections around the NBA, around the world in terms of scouting departments, in terms of all these different places. Masai Ujiri is a world-class front office person in basketball operations. That is what he is. He brought this team a championship. His resume speaks for itself. He is going to have a lot of bargaining power in any negotiation. And that's fine, all well and good, if you don't want to pay him. Now, where this gets a little bit gross, and this is not even the thing we're talking about in this video, but is the history that he's had, Edward Rogers, with Masai Ujiri and trying to pay him. As back in 2021, and mind you, this is coming right off of our championship. This is when Masai Ujiri had done essentially nothing wrong for nearly 7-8 years. So the Toronto Raptors are now at this point. Took a team that was in the mud and brought them a championship. So at this point in time, Edward Rogers had the gall to do this. Come out and say that Rogers told his partners that he felt compensation was too high, and according to MLSE sources and a source close to the NBA, Rogers is convinced that the Raptors could have been managed without Ujiri's help by existing general manager Bobby Webster. The sources said that sometime after the meeting, Rogers called Ujiri and told him he wasn't worth the money he was being paid. The NBA source said the call left Ujiri feeling so angry and disrespected by Rogers that he considered taking a year off as president of the Raptors. Again, we covered this back in 2021. We covered this back when all these negotiations were going on. There was a lot of concerns that Masai Ujiri would leave, and it was a really scary time for the Toronto Raptors there. Now, the Raptors ended up coming to the decision to part ways with Masai, which I still think is just stupid, but that's what ended up happening full circle. Edward Rogers got all the power, and now the reports, so his past history back up that current reporting that cost was an issue to keep Masai Ujiri around. So there's that. We all know that's going on. What is this new update that is genuinely sickening? Well, here it is. It's coming from KOC. He came out and said, "My understanding is that the Raptors ownership, MLSE, they felt Masai Ujiri was stretched too thin with Basketball Without Borders, his nonprofit Giants of Africa. Raptors ownership felt the time he was investing there was growing, and it was detracting from his role in running the Toronto Raptors." Now, this is just one of the dumbest excuses that could ever come out, that could ever be leaked by MLSE. And I'm sure with the backlash, with all of the news that's come out, the same way Nico Harrison took a lot of heat and ownership took a lot of heat in terms of the Luka trade, stuff starts to leak as to why this actually happened, despite saying the right things out there at the beginning. Okay? That's what ends up going down. MLSE is going to try to do damage control. They had Keith Pelley kind of give the whole spin on everything that's happening, and to allude to this, right, in terms of what he said. right? He talked about his discussion with Masai Ujiri in terms of why they're parting ways. And, he says he likes Masai Ujiri and all that type of stuff. But as he said, there are many factors that played a part in this decision. And the timing was right and stuff. He's going to say all the positive ones. Like, oh, the Raptors organization is great. That's why we could part ways with Masai Ujiri right now, because we have a Bobby Webster in place. And, it's a great time to do it. The ones they're not going to say is Rodgers being cheap. And they're going to leak stuff they can't say publicly, but they think it's going to help them be good. Edward Rodgers is probably feeding this to different people and thinking to himself, ooh, we're going to get him now. People are going to think Masai Ujiri is lazy or not focused on his job and think that. I genuinely believe that this man is so detached from reality. He will believe if this gets out, it gets to people, and given the Raptors' record as of late, people are going to genuinely, Masai Ujiri's Giants of Africa, which he's been doing his entire tenure with the Toronto Raptors, right? Like, it's never detracted from his ability to do his job ever. He's going to think that this public's just like, oh, yeah, he's not focused on his job. It makes sense to fire him. That is one of the dumbest things. Imagine you getting fired and then your boss leaking, oh, this guy does too much charity work in his spare time. That's why he's like one of the dumbest, sickest excuses that an organization could kind of have out there for Masai Ujiri being taken apart. And you know what? Because Masai Ujiri, yes, he could be a bit, trying to be outside the box, trying to do different things with his decision-making for the Toronto Raptors. I'm not saying he's not above criticism with how he handled the Toronto Raptors, especially in the last couple years of his tenure. Don't get me wrong. I don't think the guy that's traveling around the world to personally watch these young prospects, the guy, that really was in the weeds, is literally doing his due diligence on every single star player that's coming out via trade. I don't think Masai Ujiri is the guy that is not working that hard, is too distracted with his other jobs. And even if he's spending time out there at Giants of Africa on his work hours or whatever the heck it is, you get the benefits of it. You get the benefits of it as an organization. There's not a lot of teams sending scouts all over the world, specifically in Africa, but in all these pockets of the world where there's legitimate talent. The Raptors have found steals in these pockets because specifically Masai Ujiri has a relationship with all of these players. There's no argument there. It doesn't make sense. It's a stupid argument, and it's sickening that this guy thinks that people are going to buy this. People are going to be like, oh, yeah, that's Masai Ujiri. He's not working hard. He's not doing his job. And you know what? If Masai Ujiri's not doing every phone call, if it's Bobby Webster doing a lot of the grunt work out there as GM, where Masai Ujiri is kind of putting his stamp on all the final decisions and stuff, you know what? That is worth that money for Masai. You know why? Because his experience, his guidance, his going through the, ruts of the league, paying his dues, that's what happens in a business. The people that have it figured out, they aren't going to be doing all the work in the weeds. They are there for their knowledge, their guidance, and their relationships, their insight. That's what Masai Ujiri makes him a great GM. And to close, to do this, that's what they're there for. That's why they are worth $15, $16, $17 million. Because he has those relationships. And now we're getting buzz that Giannis might be on the market again later in the summer. And now there's no world we get him. There's no, I'm sure there's going to be rumors and reports and we'll try to convince ourselves. But without Masai Ujiri, that is a pipe dream. It doesn't make sense. And to throw out hey, this guy does too much charity as way to tarnish his reputation, do damage control and stuff. As the fan base is going to get behind this. He wasn't doing his job that well because he was focused on charity. What are we doing here? What are we doing with this? Stupid.